Hello and welcome to this video on Stata's interface.
Stata is a statistics software that is commonly used in economics and business research, not least accounting. And it looks something like this. Now, it might look a little bit different on your screen, but this is the general setup. And I'm going to show you first the windows. So here we have a window called variables. The location, the placement of this window can vary in on different computers. For instance, if I click on the variables window and I drag it, I get different options. So I can place it on different parts of the screen. So if I want to place it here, I move it to there. So that's why it might look different on your screen. I'm going to move it back to the right. So the variables window is where I see all my variables. Now, I don't have any variables yet because I haven't uploaded any or I haven't created any or imported any. So that is empty. We'll see in a minute what that will look like when I import the variables, or I can create a variable. Here is the results window. This is where all the results come when I run my statistical tests, or I tabulate data, or do anything. Now this will look a little bit different as well on different computers. I have chosen to give mine a classic look. That means there's a black background, almost like an old terminal. And that is because I like for it to pop out a little bit so I easily find my results window. If you right click on the results window, you can change the preferences. So I have a classic color theme. I'm pretty sure that when you launch Stata for the first time, it's going to come with a standard color scheme. Now, if I apply that, you'll see this is what it would look like. As I said, I like for my to pop out a little bit, so I choose the color scheme, the classic color scheme. I can also choose by right-clicking a different font and a different font size. I'm not going to mess around with that now, however. Then here I have the command window. The command window is where I type my code. Now, you can use Stata without using any code. You might be familiar with other software such as SPSS, which is commonly used in statistics as well. And that is basically menu-based. Menu-based means that you use the menu to do what it is you want to do. Now, Stata can also lets you use the menu, but what makes it very efficient is that you can type commands and you can save those commands so that you easily can repeat what it is you want to do over and over again. In the review window, you see the history. So when I type a command, the command will end up here in my history. So let me show you with the system data what you can do. So if I type sysuse, that means use system data, auto, which is a special data set about cars. I hit enter. Now what it does, it loads the system data into Stata. Now, this is available on any Stata, in any computer. If you're running Stata, you can type sysuse and auto. There are also other packages out there, or data files out there that you can download or use and that are preloaded into Stata as well. You can mess around with that. So sysuse auto, I have a number of variables now that look like this. You can see here in the review window that what I typed just now ended up here in my little history. Now let's just have a quick look at the menus. As I said, I won't be using the menus much because I will do everything via the command window, or even better, using a do file. I will explain in a minute what a do file is. But In general, here in the file, you can open and save data sets, and perhaps most importantly, import data from Excel. Now, of course, you can also use code to import data from Excel, but this is where you would do it if you use the menu. Edit, the usual stuff, contains the usual stuff, copy, paste, find. Then we have 3 tabs called Data, Graphics, and Statistics. This is where you would basically explore your data, make graphs, and run all statistical tests. However, we will do these things via a do file or via the command window. Window lets you select the 5 windows that we have here. Well, I have only 4 here because properties is hidden away down here. I can click on that and look at the properties of variables as well. The properties of the variables and the data. Go back to the command. And you can also open the do file editor from here. I've talked about the do file editor a number of times. The do file editor can also be accessed via this toolbar. Now, this toolbar contains 2 important buttons, the do file editor and the data editor. Those are the 2 I think are most important. The do file editor, click on that, opens a new file that looks like this. Now, I can type here. I can type code that I could type also in the command window, but this lets you save all your code in a separate file and then lets you run it later. You can either run one line at a time and you just save little code snippets that you like, or you can create a full program here and run it from the top. Now, if I select this text and I click this button here, I will execute this command. So if I do that and I type clear, it clears the memory in Stata. That means everything disappeared here. But luckily, it's so easy to call it back by just typing the code we learned before. Just use auto. And I will once again execute the selection. And I bring back the variables. This is the most important button in the do file editor. When you're done with your do file, you want to save it, you simply save it, and you can call on it later or open it later to rerun your code. Close the do file for a little, or minimize it for a while. Now we can have a look at the data editor. So that's this button. Opening the data editor, I see all the variables that I loaded earlier. Make, price, MPG, etc. And they're shown here. And it's just good to be able to have an overview sometimes of your variables. You can also select the different observations and type here. Now you want to be careful that you don't mess up your data this way, but obviously if you find an error, that might be useful. Most of the data editing will be done via code, however. Now, one thing that is interesting to note is that everything that we have done is shown here in the review window and as well in the results window. So we can see here what we've been typing. So when I manipulated one of the observations in the data editor, I changed variable rep78 and I typed in this number in observation number 6. It shows that exactly. So it did a replace in this way. And now, and then when I changed it back to 3, which was the value originally, it showed that as well. So replace rep78 equals to 3 in observation number 6. So that also shows you what you did in command, in code form. Finally, if you need help with any of the commands, you can simply type help in the command window, followed by the command that you want to look up. So for instance, replace, and then you get some information about that command here, which is usually very helpful.